Welcome to the Daily Bite. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Andrews.
Our study in the book of Proverbs continues today in chapter 27. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Let another praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. A stone is heavy, and sand is weighty, but a fool's provocation is heavier than both. Wrath is cruel, anger is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. One who is full loathes honey, but to the one who is hungry everything bitter is sweet. Like a bird that strays from its nest is a man who strays from his home. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Do not forsake your friend and your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. Be wise, my son, and make my heart glad, that I may answer him who reproaches me. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. Take a man's garment when he has put up security for a stranger, and hold it in pledge when he puts up security for an adulteress. Whoever blesses his neighbor with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, will be counted as cursing. A continual dripping on a rainy day and a quarrelsome wife are alike. To restrain her is to restrain the wind, or to grasp oil in one's right hand. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who guards his master will be honored. As in water face reflects face, so the heart of man reflects the man. Sheol and Abaddon are never satisfied, and never satisfied are the eyes of man. The crucible is for silver, and the furnace is for gold, and a man is tested by his praise. Crush a fool in a mortar and with a pestle, along with crushed grain, yet his folly will not depart from him. Know well the condition of your flocks, and give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever. And does a crown endure to all generations? When the grass is gone and the new growth appears, and the vegetation on the mountains is gathered, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. There will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and maintenance for your girls. This is the word of the Lord. Verse 1, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. It almost sounds the opposite of what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, where he tells us not to worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough worries for itself. So, not to worry about it, not to stress on it, just to live in today and take care of the needs of the day. Whereas here it's not boasting about tomorrow. We have no idea what tomorrow will bring. You might be going about your day-to-day, and something happens that causes tomorrow to look entirely different. You thought you were going to go to this place. You were going to go on a trip, and then your car breaks down, and now you don't have a means to get there. Or, any number of things could shift. You learn that you have a new child. Now your future looks very different, right? All kinds of things. Just live in the day. Enjoy the day the Lord has made. For this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Verse 2 is about being humble. Don't boast about yourself. Let another praise you. Just do the work you've been given to do, and as you're faithful, people will notice, and they will appreciate, they will respect you. Verse 3, a stone is heavy, sand is weighty, but a fool's provocation is heavier than both. That is deadly. You can picture having a heavy stone set upon us and how that would weigh us down and crush us over time. But the foolishness of the fool, it can destroy us much more dangerously. Wrath is cruel, anger overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? So like the fool's provocation is worse than the stone and the sand, jealousy is worse than wrath and anger. Wrath and anger pointed, they bring violence, yes, But jealousy oftentimes will know no bounds, right? The jealous man ends up out of his mind in a way. He's not thinking straight, but he's thinking through lust or something else. And you can't fathom what he might do. We might talk about God's jealousy in this. Our God is a jealous God. He's jealous for us as his people. And so he then brings his wrath and his anger upon the false gods of this world and those who would lead his children astray. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. So one who would rebuke you, correct you out loud, is better than to say that you love someone, but not do anything to actually show that love, to keep it hidden. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, very much like the better is the open rebuke line. As they wound you, they strike you not with blows of the fist, but they strike you with words, correction, teaching, instruction. Whereas profuse are the kisses of an enemy, so the enemy flattering you, and it's not helpful. One who is full loathes honey, so even the sweet dessert, he doesn't want it because his belly is full. But to the one who is hungry, everything bitter is sweet. He'll gorge himself on whatever food is available to him. He will enjoy it because he desperately needs it. This almost reminds me of the conversation Jesus has throughout the Gospels with the Pharisees, that essentially the one who is sick is the one who needs the physician, not the one who is healthy. And that the Pharisees, because they trust in themselves and not the Lord, they think they're okay. They don't know that they need the gospel, even though the gospel is sweet. But then you have the sinner, the tax collector, the prostitute, those that Jesus goes to, and they recognize their desperate need for his salvation, and they rejoice to receive it. Like a bird that strays from its nest is a man who strays from his home. So highlighting the importance of caring for one's family. This even shows up when Paul writes the qualifications of a pastor in 1 Timothy 3, that he would be able to manage his household well. So we care for our family. It is essentially they are the first neighbors that you have been given. You've been given the responsibility to help your husband, or to love and care for your wife, to raise up your children in the way that they should go, so that when they are old, they will not depart from it. That is, point them to Christ all the time. Verse 9, oil and perfume make things smell good, make the heart glad, right? As you smell the sweet smell. But the sweetness of a friend comes not from his stench, but from his counsel. So it's not through the nose that you are blessed by your friend, but through the ear. Do not forsake your friend, your father's friend. Do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away. With this one, I think you have to take all of verse 10 together. So the idea of not going to your brother's house in the day of your calamity is contrasted with, or compiled with, I guess, the idea that that brother is far away. Proximity here matters. Again, the closeness of being at home. I really like this as the picture Jesus gives in Acts 1, verse 8. As he's about to ascend into heaven, he gives the disciples the command that they are to be his witnesses in Judea, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. He starts right where they are, in Jerusalem, the place where they're living at the time, where they've been for the last few weeks. And then he goes and he expounds on that. He goes outward. So it's like almost looks like a bullseye at that point. You start in the middle, and then you have layers to it of places where you will go to share the gospel. And so it is for us. As we live out this life, we have a calling first and foremost to the people closest to us. There are people on the other side of the world we will probably never meet. Are they our neighbor? Yeah, technically. We can talk about them that way, sure. They are another creature God has made. But we don't have the ability, we don't have the capacity as an individual to care for 8 billion people. You just can't. Care for the ones that God has placed in close proximity to you. And that seems to be the message here in verse 10 as well. So your friend, your father's friend, those are people that are close. In this particular case, your brother isn't close. So on your day of calamity, where do you go? Go to the people that are close to you. That as you have cared for them, hopefully they also in turn will care for you. Verse 11, be wise, my son, make my heart glad, that I may answer him who reproaches me. We've talked about wisdom as Jesus and being wise as trusting in Jesus. So they may make fun of me, but in the end I can say, look at my son. As a dad, I can say this. May the world mock me all at once if my daughters are in paradise. I don't care what this world does to me. That's essentially the position of Solomon here, that his son would be wise is enough. It's good enough. He can enjoy that, even if the world is bitter. Verse 12 is from chapter 22, verse 3, identical. The prudent sees danger and hides, so he gets out of the way, so he can live another day, whereas the simple just suffers it. So the foolish man. Verse 13 is a message we've heard several times in the book, although not phrased the exact same way. Take a man's garment when he puts up security for a stranger, or an adulteress. He's borrowing from you in order to help somebody that is not trustworthy. If they had come to you, you would not have helped them. So the instruction here of wisdom is to go ahead and accept the pledge from this man, because you're probably not going to see your regular stuff back, whatever it is you loaned out. So you'll need that pledge in return. Verse 14, don't wake up somebody, basically. Even speaking of blessing, if you're doing it to wake somebody up, is not going to be appreciated. They will see it as a curse. Verse 15, we have heard language like this before. Continual dripping on a rainy day, quarrelsome wife are alike. They are a continuous torture, that there is no silence. There is no quiet and rest. To restrain her is to restrain the wind or grasp oil in one's hand. Good luck, right? Good luck with that. Pour a little oil into your hand. You could do this as a thing with your kids. Like, go to the pantry and grab whatever cooking oil you might use, and just show it. Try to pour some in their hand. See if they can hold it. The oil's going to fall everywhere, right? It'll make a mess. So, now, do it outside. Do it over a plate. Something. But the picture here, too, is that the quarrelsome wife, you're not going to be able to restrain her. She's going to quarrel. It's part of the foolishness that she is. So we continue to see warnings about faithless wives. Again, all foreshadowing the conversation we'll have in chapter 31 about the excellent wife. Iron sharpens iron. One man sharpens another. I referenced the podcast when we had the word fitly spoken phrase. Now here we have Sharper Iron is a podcast as well that many of you might listen to and enjoy. These brothers like to take their podcast names from Proverbs. Interesting. The idea here is pretty simple, that you would use one metal to improve another, and vice versa. And so it is that we as Christians, we sharpen and strengthen each other. We encourage one another. We build each other up. This is a great spot to stop for family conversation. Who can you encourage in their faith today? And, flip side, who has sharpened you in your faith today or, yesterday? Recent examples. Tell each other about Christ. Read God's Word together, which is the point of this podcast, is that you would be reading God's Word together and be able to sharpen one another. Whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit. He who guards his master will be honored. A very simple proverb about hard work paying off. Water shows the face reflection, so the heart of man shows the reflection of who the man is. The idea that God can see this. God knows who man is. Sheol and Abaddon are never satisfied. We had Sheol and Abaddon paired up back in chapter 15, verse 11. Sheol is a reference to death in the grave, usually, although rarely hell. Abaddon, probably more closely hell, although Revelation 4 uses it as the name for Satan himself. So death in the grave, hell and Satan, never satisfied. However you want to look at that. Also, man's eyes are never satisfied. The desires of our sinful heart cannot be satiated. I'll give into this sin today, and maybe it won't bug me anymore. Oh no, it'll bug you more. Silver, gold, crucible furnace, we had that back in chapter 17, verse 3, that these things are going to be tested, refined, and so a man is going to be tested. He's going to be refined. Chapter 17 had it by God, and now this is by his praise. So you can see a man, you can test him by how he praises God, or if he praises something else, certainly. Verse 22, crush a fool, his folly will not depart from him. Not necessary to even use the mortal pestle language, really, but it's here. The point seems to be only God can remove the fool's unbelief. Not even death removes his unbelief. Not even the torture of hell would remove his unbelief. Only God can do that through the work of the Holy Spirit. Verses 23 to 27, the end of the text today, is about simple daily provision. So it goes back to verse 1, not boasting about tomorrow. You don't know what the day brings. Just live in the day. Know the condition of your flocks. Give attention to your herds. Riches do not last forever. Enjoy what you have been given. Care for what you have. When the grass is gone, new growth appears. Vegetation's gathered. So you think of harvesting your food, your crop. Lambs provide your clothing as you shave them, shear them in the spring. Goats prepare you for the price of a field. As you breed your goats, you can sell them. Your goats will provide milk that you can drink, and food for your household as you eat from your livestock. Maintenance for your girls. You'll provide for your family. Manage your household well. From back in verse 8, that conversation. Now, I will point back to verse 24 for our last family question of the day. Does a crown endure to all generations? Ask your children, does the crown endure? That is, does the line of a king last forever? In this world, no, it doesn't. Think of the greatest kingdoms, the greatest empires that have ever touched this earth. They're all gone. Every one of them has fallen in time. And even within their time, right? I mean, the pharaohs of Egypt, how many times did the dynasty shift? How many times did a different pharaoh family take the throne? And that happens in many different empires. Even the great Persian Empire, they continuously had these little Babylonian rebels that just kept popping up and stealing the throne for a few months or a year or two. Then they would fight back and take it back. And it happens all the time in worldly governments. The jostling, the fighting for power. But 2 Samuel chapter 7, God promised King David that he would establish his throne and that one of his descendants would sit on that throne in Jerusalem forever. This is Jesus. Jesus' crown endures because he lives. And because he lives and reigns for all eternity, he has promised that he will raise you from the dead and that you will live and reign with him for all eternity too. And so the crown of life, or the crown of righteousness, as the epistles will call it, will sit on our heads as we live with Christ forevermore.